Steps. This is the high points of the 50 states, and the last 50 steps, the title is a parody on Rick Ridgway's excellent book, The Last Step. All you need to do is find your state and the little black dot, and you know where your high point is. This is Mount Hood from downtown, Japanese Garden from downtown Portland, and it was the first one I did. And these are in the order that I did them, rather than any other order. Just a mountain scene up in the Cascades, some of the stuff you'll see. This is Mount Hood from Timberline Lodge. It's near the summit, a little rime ice. We had some bad weather all around us, but we managed to get the summit in and get out. Old Buddy Bry again, up on the summit. This is the high point of Washington, Mount Rainier, 14,000 foot. Big John Olson, a friend of mine, doing a little crevasse work there, getting across it. Mushrooms on the trail. This is one of my favorite shots because I've climbed every mountain in the picture. There's Little Tahoma, then Rainier, and Foss, and the one I'm standing on is Unicorn. I see Little Tahoma wasn't quite in the picture. This is a camp robber, Pinyon Jay, or Western Jay, I guess, whatever you call them. They come up and land on your hand and feed. Alpine flowers, miles and miles of these in places. They're just so gorgeous. I've sat down and reached out and touched 14 different varieties. I don't know my different flowers, but I know when one looks different than another. This is from Kent, Washington. Having lived in Kent, I got a lot of pictures of the mountain. It's a sunrise over Mount Little Tahoma, Little T, when I first did Rainier. I had been into golf just before getting into mountain climbing, so I took up a 2-iron and 2 golf balls. I hit one into the caldera and one towards Seattle. It's a whiteout. I didn't see how far it went, but it had to be about the longest stroke I ever took with a golf club. Looking north, back down underneath the whiteout, was Mount Baker and then Glacier Peak over there. Silhouette of Big John Olson again. I won a prize in a photo contest with that, and this one also. Climbing. Some of the fauna on the side of getting back down the mountain. Waterfalls. And that's from back in the Seattle area again. It's a beautiful mountain. This is White Butte in North Dakota. Some of the fauna there. This is Harney Peak in South Dakota. It was kind of strange, these ladybugs, when I went up there, evidently this is how they propagate, but I couldn't walk without stepping on hundreds of them. But you may take note that they're not all ladybugs. Feeding time in the Black Hills there. Now, Paul and Lila and I, we went up and Paul resurveyed that because of the one pinnacle there, and we found that this was the high point of Harney Peak, the high exposed point. There may be something higher underneath the building, but as you walk out on the balcony, turn to your right, and that's where that little point is that Paul and Lila are standing on. And that's our club logo they carried up there, and they did the high point. That's good old number 4. They did the high point for us. This is the point that is in question. I climbed up there and held that stick for Paul while he did a reading on it, and it turned out that that is indeed what, an inch or 2 or 3 inches or something lower. So that was a fun day. I really enjoyed Paul and Lila's company and so on. This is the high point of Iowa on Sterler's farm. You can see he had an old license plate up there, personalized license plate, and that's at the end of a cattle watering station or something. This is, okay, don't get after me about the pronunciation, Ochidan mound that was at one time thought to be, Boy Scouts built a thing there, it was at one time thought to be the high point of Iowa. Little kitty cat. Illinois Charles Mound, up in the extreme northwest corner of Illinois. This was unnamed when I did it. You can see how difficult some of these climbs are. Nebraska, and it's now called Panorama Point. These are really difficult to get to, some of them. The fact is, I did go crazy trying to find that driving up and down the street. Some of the local people there. Bora Peak of Idaho was at 13,000 feet. I understand that mountain is now 12 foot higher. I just heard this than it was when I climbed it due to an earthquake. I don't know if that's true or not, looking back from the summit. This is Mount Whitney's in that range above the Horse in California. Here's a 14,000 footer. It's also the highest in the contingent United States. This is the Summit Ridge. Woke up in the morning and I forgot that I was using a slower speed film, and I didn't use a filter or anything, but I seen this and I grabbed my camera and took a picture in handheld, and that's why it's out of focus. But it was so beautiful. As I say, I never used a filter. That's what you're seeing is what I seen with my, with my own, with just the naked eye. I climbed it and dropped the tent, and okay, now we're back over to Bora Peak, or Boundary Peak, and this is where we're going to, that's California, that peak over there. What is that, Montgomery or something? I don't know. These bristlecone pines, some of them 4,000 years old, I don't know. This is Guadalupe Peak in Texas, and I did it in the winter. And the little thing on top there is dedicated to, I believe, the Pony Express and either World War I or World War II aviators. And it's a real nice trail up there. We just got back from there with our other dinner climb. It's Mount McKinley in Alaska. Again, well, you remember this from the first. This is the crapper at base camp with a beautiful backyard. Traveling up the glacier again, the mode of, with use of sleds, and the glacier, I always think of it as a river. You can see the flow in it there. Hunter and Huntington from 14,000 feet. Going up the West Buttress on the fixed line again. The Summit Ridge, with the summit being over there. Again on the summit. This is Humphreys Peak in Arizona, and I got altitude sickness on this. It's only 12 or 13,000 feet, and I had taken a month off when I come down and did absolutely no exercise, and I'll be a son of a gun if I didn't get altitude sickness on top of that mountain, even before us to the top of it. Some of the desert scenes south of Humphreys Peak and the flora. It's so pretty out there. Deserts are supposed to be such desolate places. Somebody needs to talk a little harder to convince me of that. I've never seen so many signs of life ever, wherever I've been. Mauna Kea in Hawaii. This is the world's tallest mountain. What? What about that thing over in the Himalayas? Well, that is 29,000 feet high, but this is 35,000 feet high. Unfortunately, there's only 13,000 feet or so of it above sea level. But it is that they know of. There may be bigger ones, but as I've read, this is the tallest mountain in the world. Not the highest, just the tallest. Well, you have flora in Hawaii. Beautiful waterfalls. Mount Albert in Colorado at 14,000 feet something. There's a fella made it up around the summit there. Again, some of the flora in Colorado along the climb. Kansas, 4,000 feet, a little flat, but Kansas scenery close to the summit. This Magazine Mountain in Arkansas. This is Driscoll Mountain in Louisiana. Now these slides belong to Tom Martin. I had to borrow them from him, this one slide. This wasn't built when I did it, and I wanted to show the way it is now, so Tom kindly sent me these slides, and Paul Zumwalt and Lila sent me this slide. They have a little thing there. I had to go out and grid the whole area and say, there, I did it. Exactly when, I don't know, but... Okay, I get scared to death with some of these pronunciations. Cheaha Mountain, the highest point of Alabama, and the little stone tower on top. This is Woodall Mountain of Mississippi. Back there, it's a little bit faint. And the benchmark up there. Like I say, some of these are real hard to do. You can see how hard you have to get there. Indiana, this is the new high point. Now, it was always out in the cornfield, and whether planting corn and, you know, disking it every year made it lower or what happened, but Paul Zumwalt, they're in the process of putting up the sign, and this is Paul's slide. I did the cornfield. Anyhow, this is Paul's slide, and I want to be sure and thank him for that. And this is in the woods adjacent to the field, and he surveyed it, and that's where the actual high point is now. This is David and Kevin Foote at the Indiana High Point. Now this is Campbell Hill, and I was really fighting daylight. There's the high point. You can see that the moon was. I did something like 3 or 4 high points that day, and but I was running out of daylight. But I just barely got it done. This is Granite Peak in Montana. This is the most difficult rock climb of the 50. You just simply follow that ridge on up to the summit. This mountain just beat the snot out of me. I had I've left slings all over the place coming back down off there. I remember at one time I soloed it, and at one time I was doing a rappel, and I lost control, and I was just rattling back and forth with probably at least 1,000-foot airdrop, and I was disoriented, and I really had a rough time on this mountain. But most climbers will tell you that. This is one that Jack Parcell excuse me. This is one that Jack Parcell got hurt on, and it took him 3 days to get him down to where a helicopter could come in and get him off the mountain even. So this, really respect this mountain. This is the last chimney up to the summit. Now, if you get up there and you go up this, mark that spot before you follow, it's easy from there to the summit. Mark that spot, because I had trouble finding it coming back down. And there's a little underclimb there, is about the hardest pitch right in the center of your picture there. You have to do a little underclimb or a little side climb there, probably a strong 5.5 grade class climb. So, but this is on the trail up to Granite Peak, Lake Simcoe. This is Tom Sauk in Missouri, the high point of Missouri, and this is the original. There's a benchmark in that, and a couple hundred yards maybe back towards the farm from here is Paul re-surveyed it and found another rock that's the high point, and that's the one that you want to do. But you might want to, there's also a couple of cement pillars up here with benchmarks in them, so you might want to hit about 4 spots here. This is the high point of Michigan, Mount Arvon. And it's probably our first official or unofficial club get-together. It's Don Behrens and Jack Parcell and Clark Hall, and we all met up there, and Don was teasing me that it was my 51st high point because I had done Mount Curwood, and there is Mount Curwood. I had done that previously, but that's they resurveyed it. And This is Eagle Mountain in Minnesota, the high point in your picture there. And then from the summit looking back at the lake. Some friends along the trail. Nothing you'd want to pet, but still. This is Tim's Hill in Wisconsin. And they have a nice little tower there. This is Brasstown Bald, the high point of Georgia. And they have a real nice museum up at the top. This is a benchmark at South Carolina. There's a tower up there, but if you want to go beyond the tower, back where that rock is with the benchmark on it, and Mount Mitchell, and you can read that. It's the highest point east of the Mississippi. This is Klingman's Dome, and I got a real big scare here. I came up there, and about 2 miles out, they had the traffic shut down to the summit because they were spraying for some kind of a bug or another. And I just went ahead and walked up the road, and I finally ran into a ranger, and he showed me a way to get around where they were spraying, come in on another trail from behind, and I was able to make the summit. And then I came back, and I was feeling so good, you know, because I was afraid I wasn't going to get it, and had traveled all that way, and I felt so good. It was all downhill about 2 miles, and I jogged the whole way, and it was just easy jogging, and I just having the time of my life and feeling so good about it. But it was a real scare. I didn't think I was going to make it. This is just some of the fauna up there. Playing Possum is the title of this slide. This is the high point that I like the least. This is Tennessee, Black Mountain, and there's a little cement foundation over there that I think was a bomb target for glass bottles and stuff, and it's just a trashy mess, and I'm glad the weather was bad and I got a bad shot of it, really. So this is Virginia, Mount Rogers. This is from the Meadows there. This is Bob Failing. My camera, that's on the summit, my camera, the film wasn't turning, and I always take a backup camera, and it's just a little cheap thing, and it wasn't taking good pictures, and Bob sent me that picture, and Tom Martins had the picture from the Meadows, and I want to thank them for that. So, and this one also was Clark Hall sent me this one of the benchmark on Rogers. Now we're at West Virginia, Spruce Knob, and they have a nice little tower up there for you to get up. This one is Backbone Mountain in Maryland, and I've often wondered about the guy who was out hunting or out looking for mushrooms or whatever and never heard of a high point in his life, because there's no trail, there's no, just suddenly it's there. And you know, for someone to come on to that doesn't do high points, it's got to be you know, what the heck is going on? Some of the flora. I wish all the states would take pride in their high points as Pennsylvania does on Mount Davis. They have just a wonderful display there. Again, I had a dark shot there, but they have, it's really worth the trip up there because they have such a nice display showing the fauna and history and so forth. This is the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. This is the highest point in Washington. I climbed this on my senior trip. Boy, I dated myself now, 1956. It's 555 feet up there. Nothing else in Washington, D.C. is allowed to be built higher than the Washington Monument. But of course that's man-made. So I need to go over to the natural high point of Washington, D.C., which is there. This is Delaware, often joked about as being the most dangerous high point because it's in the center of that road. And you can get yourself run over on Enbright Road out there. understand now they have a sign there where they didn't when I was there. This is High Point, That's the name of New Jersey's High Point, is High Point. That kind of simplifies things. This is Rhode Island, Jermouth Hill. I found several of these witness survey markers and so on, and I just took a picture of one. This is Connecticut, Mount Frizzell, however you want to pronounce it, and this is the only high point that's on the side of a mountain. Everything behind that's in another state, New York. This is the high point of Connecticut, and it just happens to be the high point. The rest of the mountain, I did go ahead and climb the mountain, but the rest of the mountain just happens to be in another state. And this is some of the fungus on the trail. This is Massachusetts, Mount Greylock, the tower up there. Now, John Pollitt didn't tell me how hard mountain climbing was. I got out of my car and somebody had left a baby in a station wagon. Probably they thought that it was asleep and going to stay asleep, but it was wide awake and crying his poor heart out. And I'm standing there, the station wagon's locked, so I can't pick the baby up. So if I tap on the window and go goo, 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 whatever, the baby quits crying. And I had to do that for 5 or 10 minutes until the parents finally come back, which I had a few words for them. But like I said, my climbing instructor, when I took the class, John Pollitt, just didn't tell me that, you know, that part of climbing. This is Mount Marcy in New York. This is where Theodore Roosevelt got word that the president was shot, and he was now president of the United States. He was on the side of this mountain fishing, I think, or something. Real interesting trail up here, whatever material you want, logs, gravel, rock, whatever, creek on the way up. And New York should take pride in the Mount Marcy Trail because it is very well kept, and they do an excellent job there. This is Mount Mansfield in Vermont, 4,000 footer, looking from the summit. This is Mount Washington in New Hampshire. This mountain is known for, I guess they have more deaths on this mountain than any other or whatever, because of the unpredictable and the fierce weather. The highest winds, 231 miles or some such a thing. The highest ever recorded on Earth was recorded on the top of this mountain. They have a cog railroad going up it. You can see over the engineer's head there, the top. One of the oldest cog railroads in the world, I guess. The one there is like 112 or 114 years old. It's one of the more climb mountains. You can drive up there, you can hike up there and take the cog railroad. This is Maine, Katahdin in the high point of Maine. And the folks in Maine have never heard about switchbacks. The trail just goes straight up the mountain. They don't really believe in. I love the little flowers here following the crack of that rock, and this is from the summit looking down. Looking south, actually, from the summit. And a sunset, looking back at the mountain there. And this is Black Mesa in Oklahoma. It's 25 miles long, and it's, they believe, the longest mesa in the world. This is a little friend. I started to take a shortcut down off the mountain, and I took 3 steps and heard as many rattlesnakes in this rock slide that I was climbing into, and I took 3 steps carefully back. And if you look close there, you can see my little friend in the crack there, one of them. Yeah. This is up on the mesa and the high point location. This is New Mexico, Wheeler Peak. We're talking 13,000 feet. It looks like a cannon up there, the register, but that's looking back from the point where I took the other picture of the mountain. And that's a real pretty country up in there. Also, some of the flora along the hike up there. Start out from the tall ski area. Now, this is in Utah, and this is Kings Peak, and Oh, it doesn't quite show up in this slide, but they have this beautiful marble color in the rocks and so on. And this is from Anderson Pass, so you just spend a couple hours picking your way through those boulders and rocks and stuff up to the summit and back. This is some of the fauna along the way. I almost got run over by a cow moose coming down the trail coming out of here. Now this is Gannett Peak in Wyoming, and this was the last one that I did. And this is from not Gunsight, but anyhow, I went up that there from Dinwiddie Pass across the glaciers, and I went up that route there. And do not do this. I soloed that too. And right across there is a big schrund, and it was just begging me to make mistakes. And as I went up there, just off to my left were great big old breadbox sized rocks that were coming down all the time. There's nobody climbing ahead of me. They just fall, I guess. And once I got up on the summit ridge, there's just a piece of cake walking across there. But what I should have done is gone up the pinnacle route there, part of the time on the rock and part of the time on that glacier over there, and worked my way up there. And indeed, that's the way I went up, because I didn't want any more of that chimney that I went up there, that snowshoe. This was my campsite. This is the Upper Titcomb Lake, and a little red thing down there, if you look close, is my gear. I did take a tent up, but I found this rock overhang, and I just threw my sleeping bag down there. And this is the only mountain that I failed on the year before, and I had to go back the next year, and then I made it up. But everything happened to me the year before. This I find interesting is there's a flower and there's the end of a glacier or a snowfield or ice field. Life starts immediately. I always thought the wind blew these things up on the glaciers and stuff, but I've read recently that they actually live up there, some of them. This is probably the most beautiful approach of all the 50 high points on Gannett. It's 18 or 22 miles, depending upon which ranger you talk to. And it all looks like this. And it's just incredible. There's fish in these lakes. I intend to go back, not to climb a mountain, but just to spend some time up in there. It's so beautiful. It's, as I say, it's the prettiest of the 50 high points. The approach, in my opinion. It's just in the Wind River, is it called? Area up in there. Little friend along the trail. Now, this last slide is titled Resting Back at the Trailhead. This is the rest of this is called to fill out the video. It's just some odds and ends that I have. This is the group that the club dinner and climb, and this is on the summit of Mount Humphreys, of our first really big dinner climb. And I don't know. This is. The rest of this is called to fill out the video. It's just some odds and ends that I have. This is the group that the club dinner and climb, and this is on the summit of Mount Humphreys, of our first really big dinner climb. And